There you go. Ready?
Okay.
Perfect. Hi, Susie. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to finally see and chat with you.
Yes, we've been following each other on social media for a long time, and you're always my friendly reminder to keep my stuff together. And I feel like this is perfect timing because I think September on the horizon kind of feels like a fresh start for a lot of us with things getting back to regular scheduling. So I always kick off on the same note, which is the question, how do you keep yourself well?
How do I keep myself well? Hmm. Well, this has been top of mind for me. I just moved, so moving is always very stressful. So it's just a good reminder to do all the things, right? The water and the habitual morning routine. So to keep that going when everything else is chaos, that really helped me get through
Yeah.
that move.
The
Yeah.
anchor habits when everything else is kind of up in the air. What does your morning routine look like?
The water and I love yin yoga, so get up and do a little bit of that. And I never was growing up, but now I'm a make my bed person as soon as I get out of bed. That's just trying to get my kids to keep doing that as well, right?
Adopt
Bit
that
of a
practice
challenge.
early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Do
right.
you do yin yoga just at home or do you go into a studio?
I did go into a studio pre-COVID. There was one right around the corner, and then I got in the habit of just doing stuff at home. So my kids bought me a membership to an online platform, so I just get up and do it at home.
Oh, how nice. Yeah. Just first thing in the morning. What a good way to start the day. Um,
Yeah.
I always like to follow this question with, how would you have answered that question differently, say maybe 5 years ago, which I think is really prevalent to you because, you talk about starting your business after having one of your kids. So take me back to that moment after you had your, I think, fifth child, and you knew that you needed to like do something and make a change in your life. What led up to that change?
Hmm. Yes. So after five kids, I very much was just running around like a chicken with my head cut off and needed to figure out how to streamline things. I couldn't parent and be the person I wanted to be, but more importantly, be who I wanted to be to model so I could model who I wanted them to become. So started to make some personal changes. And the first one honestly was making my bed. And I went through training with the RCMP. I was a member, and during that time, they really taught you attention to detail and all of those things. So that really helped make a change.
Good for you. Well, and I can't imagine the level of organization that's needed, mentally and physically with five kids just to make the wheels go every day.
Yeah, and I hear it so many times when people call to hire me, is that people feel like they're failing, and I felt that way too. Everybody is so hard on themselves. You feel like a failure as a mom and as a person, and you're not getting everything done. So to to slow down and take the extra 30 seconds in the bathroom just to reset on the way out. It's just those little tiny choices that help you gain momentum in every way of your life, in every area of your life.
hmm Well, and I think it's important that people know services like yours exist because we look to coaches and experts in so many areas of life. Why is organization any different? Because I think so often we get caught up in the overwhelm of it feels like too much. You don't know even where to start because everything's overwhelming. So you're just constantly trying to keep up with things and can't kind of reset and have that foundation. So I would love for you to walk me through, how you started changing your habits in obviously a very busy home in a way that felt organized and manageable to you, which, the example of starting with the bed, like one thing that you can create as a routine. How did you build from there? And, if you can offer advice on how to build from there.
I'm sorry that cut out. I couldn't understand your question.
That's okay. I was just saying, I would love for you to kind of walk me through how you started changing your habits in such a busy home in a way that felt organized and manageable to you. Maybe that kind of progressive step, because I think it's easy to want to overhaul everything, but then we get a bit overwhelmed. So I love the example of, starting with making your bed. It's something actionable. You can create it a habit. So, what habits did you start to change, and what do you kind of recommend for that progression for others and for your clients?
Very a great question. I started to walk. I just started to take one little tiny, what can I change today that's going to take one little choice that I can make that will gain momentum in the right way. And I read a book, it's one of my favorite books called The Slight Edge. And it talks about choices that are easy to do are also so easy not to do. So like brushing your teeth or washing your face or drinking a water, the first thing is you get up in the morning. And I started listening to podcasts and just those little tiny choices that keep compounding, right? So I started to walk and listening to the podcast, and I started reading more. And all of these things are so connected. Our health and wellness is so intertwined with what we see and what we surround ourselves with. So it was just those little tiny choices, and they snowballed, right?
Yeah, one thing at a time. So for you, is there any
Mm-hmm.
specific habits within your home after making the bed that kind of became habitual, with like organization or cleaning and, deep cleaning and those things that sometimes get away from us?
Always leaving the room a little bit better off than you entered it. So
Hmm.
instead of just taking off your clothes at night and throwing them on the floor, or if they still happen to be clean, just taking that extra couple seconds to put it back up on the hanger. And when you take your clothes off the hanger in your closet, taking that extra second to put all the hangers together. So when you're searching for a hanger, you're not, rummaging through your closet to try and find that empty hanger. They're all in a row. So it's just taking that extra second to put things back. When you fold your underwear, or if you, well, sorry, I'll back up. If it's recognizing the type of person you are as well, because you see all of these things on Pinterest or Instagram that are just beautiful. But if you're not the type of person that's going to take the time to fold your underwear, because a lot of people aren't, can you get it in a bin, like, so that you know where it is? It doesn't have to be perfectly lined up, and it doesn't have to be pretty. There are some people that like that, but that's not everyone. So it's recognizing the type of person you are, and accepting and being okay with that.
Yeah. What projects are you really willing to take on? During COVID, I feel like a lot of us got caught up in the like cleaning and organizing, and even on TikTok, I don't know if you've seen the trend of people like restocking all their canisters, like in the laundry room
Yes.
and in the kitchen. And I got sucked into buying these silly expensive canisters that then I was like putting all my baking ingredients into, like decanting them. Does not make life any more convenient for me to have it, or any more organized to do that. I'm like, now it's just taking up more space.
More space.
I
Well,
should
and
have
it's
done.
time consuming too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, now there's like, this much left in a bag. Now I have the canister and the bag. What do
And
I what do I do with it? I'm like, I actually think it made matters worse. So that's a great point. Like, what type of person are you? Do you really need those certain things? I commend anyone who has the patience to Marie Kondo their underwear, because I'm most definitely not that person. Um, and
right.
for you, well, let me say, like, I live alone. So me changing my habits and organizing my space is one thing, but living in a very busy household with many people, how did you make some of these changes as a family, and how do you ensure that they're changes that stick? Because like any habit, walking, water, yoga, it takes a lot of time for that proof of concept and for it to really become ingrained, not only for one individual, but for, a whole household to get on board.
For sure. And that's a challenge, especially I see with spouses, right? Like one is very organized, the other is not. They'll call me and say, "This, we're constantly fighting. How do we work together?" And that goes back to the same thing of just understanding how each of you work and finding a happy medium. One thing I found within my house was just trying to figure out what is the easiest thing for my kids. And this time of year, I see that with a lot of families trying to prepare going back to school. So instead of expecting your kids to come home and hang up their coats on a hanger and, open the closet door, it's just one more thing, and they're not going to do that. So instead of expecting them to do that, maybe just put a couple hooks. Each kid has their own hook. They can come home, put their backpack and their bags and their jackets on this hook instead of trying to open the closet door, put it on the hanger, that kind of thing, just to simplify. Another thing I found that helped them maybe even eat a little healthier was I don't decant everything, but I do take the snacks out of the boxes. And if I'm really wanting to encourage them to eat certain things, I'll put them eye level and I'll put them in a clear container, as opposed to, your licorice and your candy, put it in a solid basket and put it up out of your prime real estate, so it's not right in front of you.
Yeah. I mean, and
Yeah,
it's the psychology too of some of these things. Like when you have that visual cue of the hook, you're more likely to use it. When you have the visual cue of the snacks you want to reach for, I mean, there's a reason grocery stores do that. They put the prime real estate
exactly.
at
Yeah.
high value. Same thing goes for what they want to market, to kids. So you're marketing the healthy options to your kids. That's great.
Right.
This is just a personal question, do you find that there's a trend within partners in terms of like opposites attract with spouses, of like one person's really tidy and one person's messy? Or do you find when you're working with families, like most often people are gravitating towards someone with similar organizational habits? Because I feel like that could cause some real issues.
Well, and the people who contact me, obviously they're contacting me because they're usually at their wits' end. They've bought all the baskets. It's similar to what you're talking about, and they don't know where to start. They're overwhelmed. So most of the families that I work with do have opposing ends of someone is very organized and someone is not, and they're just trying to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah, you're saving marriages.
Well,
Um,
and my favorite thing is I haven't had a client yet who just cleaning up even one small space, it hasn't snowballed into eating better, taking better care of themselves. It's all so connected,
mhm.
and
Well,
it's so exciting.
yeah, I mean, for myself, this is so funny. I was just talking to a friend of mine prior to this, and we were joking about how, like, I am a minimalist. She has dubbed me. And for me, it's purely for my mental health. It's just, I don't like clutter. I like things super neutral. I don't like a lot of things around. And I know not only is my mental health better when my space is better, but if my space starts to go, it's likely an accurate depiction of what my mental health is doing at the time as well. So it's kind of a cycle in that way. What was your biggest change for your mental health? Because I'm sure you started noticing many changes in stress levels, making these changes for yourself. And then, of course, with clients as well, I bet you get follow-up messages about how much better they're feeling.
Most definitely, our outer world is a direct reflection of our inner world, right? And um, for me, I've found it to be really therapeutic. I've had a couple deaths in our family this past year, and having the opportunity to really go through all those sentimental items personally, it teaches you how to help other people go through a similar situation, and have that compassion and understanding that not everyone is ready at the same time to let go of things.
Mm.
um, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's where you took
Yeah.
me.
Well, no, I think that's a really great point. You know what? I can't remember the name of this show, but there used to be a show on TLC that was like, yeah, they would come at your house and organize. And I remember they would have like the keep, the donate, and like the throwaway bins. And I would watch these conversations happen with people who, like, couldn't let go of the sentimental things, which I completely understand. I'm probably stray too far on the opposite end of that. I don't want it. But then it is, how do you honor someone that you've lost, and what do you choose to keep and what do you choose to let go of? Do you have any advice for that? Because I think that when we do lose someone, that's such a sensitive topic where, you do the thing where it's like boxes keep being shifted, like from your mom to you to your siblings.
Yeah.
My siblings have done that, like popcorn, like, I don't want it, you take it. We
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
want someone to have it. We want to know it still exists, but like none of us want to be the ones to take it in our space
To
and
bite the
worry
bullet.
about it. And I think we do. We get so attached to items. How do you navigate those conversations with clients, because they're so sensitive? And as you said, people are likely at different places in that journey as to comfort levels of letting go.
Yeah. Fortunately, most of the clients that work into the sentimental items, we start with the easy things first. So it's building up those muscles, similar to going to the gym. You wouldn't go and immediately hit it up for an hour with the hardest weight, the heaviest weights. You'd start out quite small. So we would start out getting rid of the easy stuff, the no-brainers that they know they haven't used in a year and a half that would be easy to replace. Once we're at the point where they're ready to tackle the sentimental items, it's really going through them and recognizing, is it a case of, yes, my brother passed it along to me, I feel obligated to keep it. Do I really want it? When I hold it, when I look at it, does it give me great memories, or am I just keeping it because I feel like I'm dishonoring them to get rid of it? uh, just really having someone objectively ask those questions sometimes helps you feel like it's okay to let it go. As well, it helps to know that it's going to someone who could use it. I think a lot of the time, people, if they know it's not just going to get thrown in the trash or someone's not going to sell it, it's really going to someone who can use it and is going to make their life better. It allows them just to be okay to let it go.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. A great point. And I like that you say it's, that progression, ease into the comfort level of, working into the hard things. I feel like you probably have to pace people as well, because I know I'm the type of person where it's like, I start on a room and now it's like a whole day affair, which can sometimes be debilitating, because then it's like, well, if I don't have all day to clean and organize, I'm not even going to start at all, versus like chunk it and take it in spaces. Is that something that you work with, like, progressively with your clients? How do you navigate the time commitment together, and also, recommending for them to do independently so that they don't do that burnout? My favorite is when you get all the clothes out of the closet and then you're like, oh,
Oh
now it's on my
no, what
bed.
do I
I
do
got it. I
now?
got to
Yeah,
deal with it.
yeah.
Yeah. How do you work on that with them? And then do you have advice that you give to them kind of as they're maintaining independently?
I have clients work with us in different ways. So sometimes they will go side by side and we'll make all the decisions together. Um, they're okay to work for long periods of time, and by long I mean 5 hours. So we work in 3 hour to 5 hour sessions, and it's surprisingly hard on people. Uh, they get exhausted mentally, physically. So
Mm.
sometimes they work side by side. Other times I've got quite a few clients who will go to work, and we obviously have great conversations ahead of time, and I'll leave them homework, but I actually go through whatever their master bedroom and bathroom, whatever the case is, while they're at work. Sometimes at lunch, they'll check out some texts and put X's through 100%. I know I'm going to donate that, and then I take a full vehicle load of donations away that day, so it's out of their house. And when they come home, they've got boxes of homework of, can you sort through this? When I come back, they'll have gone through it. So it's that accountability. The following week, they know I'm coming back, so they're going to get that homework done.
That's a really great approach. And I think it's probably one of those things too. A lot of times when you have those sort throughs, it's like, oh, I didn't even know I still had this. And I love that you
Yeah.
use the word accountability, because I say it all the time. If I had to put I would say 50% of what my clients need me for is my actual nutrition and wellness expertise. But the other 50%, sometimes even more, is purely the accountability of,
For
you
sure.
a timeline, which I think for this, the timeline is so huge. And when you're investing, financially as well, okay, well, it's holding us accountable. Like, this is something we really want to prioritize. Like, we're making an investment, it's a value. And, you're going to follow up the next week to make sure it's done, because otherwise we all have the garage or whatever the room is that we say, I'll get to it when I have free
Get
time.
to it
But
later.
that time never magically comes unless we make it. Oh yeah, that's a really great point. I have a question for back to school season, because I think this is something a lot of parents struggle with. Same thing with the sentimental thing, but something you can't donate. All of the artwork, the projects, the trophies, the ribbons, the participation, like, I don't have to deal with this yet, but my parents still have
Yeah.
everything I've done since I was walking. And my mom's like, do you want it? I'm like, I don't want it. Do you want it? What are we going to do with it? And I feel like those are the things, how do you navigate? What do you keep? What do you give away? What do you do with it when people have kids and it's all coming home every day?
Yeah, so much. So to that point, I love a bin, a good sentimental bin, and I have one for each of my kids. And also adults should have them too, because we have things we want to keep, but not necessarily keep out, want to
Yeah.
keep and protect. So I generally keep most throughout the year for each kid. And at the end of the year, they have a little pizza party together and they pick out their best of album, and they keep those favorite pictures, grades 1 through 12. And I keep a binder with the artwork, but also in that bin is a few of their baby clothes, like a football jacket, just your random trophies and awards. And I have found that because my kids are such a difference of age, right? My youngest is 10 now, and my oldest is 25. And as they go through, they will edit it themselves, But there are certain things. It's funny, the things I think they wouldn't want to keep, they do, and vice versa. So you never know. Another great tip clients have used is to take a picture of it and trash it. But I do know, yeah, kids will surprise you, and I'm rarely right about what they're going to want to keep or get rid of. So
That's,
yeah,
I love that idea. And to, have them introduce their independence of getting to choose what's important to them. And then more likely that they'll want to keep it, in the long run, versus the thing that I drew when I was in kindergarten. I have seen too, those, I don't know what the website's called, but you can like take a photo of all the artwork, or no, you send it in, you put it in like a folder and send it in, and they make a book out of it, or make
yeah,
a collage and those types of things, which, yeah, I think that's a really unique idea as well.
for sure. Those are excellent, those books.
Um, so when did you realize that this could be a business? Because so prior to this, you were with the RCMP, so clearly a huge career shift. And once you realized it could be a business, how did it start and how did it grow? Because now you're honoring multiple cities, which is just incredible.
I well, there was a break in between. So I worked for the RCMP, and I decided I would rather be a mom. Shift work was not my favorite thing. I would rather be home with my kids. So I had stayed home, and I was a stay-at-home mom for a time. In 2019, my husband lost his job, and I was trying to figure out a way to help support our family, and yeah, just incorporate everything that I had always loved and done. And so I started this business right in 2020, and was fortunate to be booked. I wasn't sure at that time if people would allow me into their homes, but they did. And I love every minute of it.
Wow. I mean, wow, what an incredible time to have started a business, like right at the crux of the pandemic, basically. And I feel like that,
Yeah,
but that reflects how much value people see in this service. And I think at a time like that, likely highlighted for a lot of people the help that they needed, spending more time in their own spaces, and really spending more time like within our own four walls than we probably ever had in the past, and taking time to be able to deal with it. Wow, good for you. That's incredible. So now you're growing. What do you feel the biggest challenges have been for you in shifting this to be a business?
I'm sorry, you cut out again at the
Oh,
end of
that's
that
okay.
question.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, what do you feel the biggest challenge that you've experienced is shifting this to a business, and also, that shift from working a, professional job with that structure to being a stay-at-home mom, which needs a lot of structure, but every day I'm sure is chaos in some way. And then now to being self-employed and a business owner, personal challenges with that, and then just challenges, starting a business.
Hmm. Having, yeah, one extreme of shift work, feeling like I was rarely home, to constantly being at home. And now I feel so lucky to have a mix where I get to choose and work around my kids' schedule. I'm lucky enough to be working with a couple ladies in Saskatoon, and they are doing the same thing. So when I was mentioning our 3 to 5 hour shifts, those are set up so that they're completely around our kids' school schedule. So couldn't feel luckier. I actually get a chance to do virtual sessions as well. So can do those. I can do those as well.
Amazing. I love that you've created that balance for yourself, and probably works out perfectly too, in the sense that that's when people are at work. So you can be in their home, navigate their space for them when they're away. And so what do you find your clients typically need you for? I know there's a spectrum, but what are some of the most common calls for help that you would come in for?
Um, Sometimes it's a top to bottom organized. And honestly, when I started my business, I thought I would be working with a lot of people who, busy families who wanted to make their homes function and streamline their process. So everything was a little bit easier, saving them time. What I was surprised by was some of the clients that have hired me because of um, just major shifts in their life. So one of my clients right now, he moved from Ottawa and he is suddenly finding himself in a wheelchair. So he couldn't unpack his belongings, loved his surroundings, but he can't get his new home to feel like home because he can't physically do that. Some clients during COVID were going through chemotherapy, and so they needed dialysis, room for all of the things that needed to come home to help him through his dialysis. So we were looking for space saving tips. Of course, some of the I love doing the pretty pantries and the master closets and the bathrooms, but the way this has been, it's been shocking how meaningful it is.
And
Yeah.
things that, would never cross your mind until you're in that position. How rewarding. I mean, really, it's just very unique to know how you're impacting people mentally and emotionally, to be able to create that space and make it a home. Have you worked with anyone who's transitioning into like a tiny home or into like a motor home or anything like that? Because I feel like those are I fall down that TikTok rabbit hole of like the space saving in tiny houses. It's so interesting and so creative. Like I would never think of that. I'm just curious if you if you've done that.
When I first started, I helped out with an RV. Have not done the tiny homes, but I too, I love how just the multifunctional furniture is
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah,
Well, I feel like
yeah,
that could be a trend that grows. I feel like still, well, maybe it's because we're in the coldest provinces in Canada. That's probably part of it. Not as many people wanting
yeah.
to move to RVs, but yeah, so much creativity. And on that note too, like just the, changes in seasons of life, but changes in the literal season where, dare I say,
Hmm.
about to switch seasons. I mean, it's 31 degrees out here today, so it doesn't really feel like it, but don't hate
It's
me.
coming.
Fall is coming.
Yeah.
I was like in the country yesterday and a bunch of the trees already leaves were changing color and fall.
Oh,
I was like, knock it off. It's too early. But
yeah.
for a lot of people, that means like the swapping of the winter closet to the summer closet to the winter closet, especially in Saskatchewan. Like our extremes are so extreme on
Extreme. Yeah.
the spectrum. How do you manage your clothing situation for you plus 6 other humans in your house? That's a lot of wardrobe. And do you have recommendations for your clients and for us in general? Like, do you recommend the closet swap, or how do you navigate that? I just do. It's all just one big. I don't have the wherewithal to be swapping in
Swapping out.
out seasons, but maybe I should.
Well, it depends on your house and on your desire to do that. So similar to decanting, are you up for that much work? If you have the space, there's no need. And also, let's face it, in Saskatchewan, we still do wear those bulky sweaters sometimes in the summertime. So not necessarily do we need to put all of it away. Personally, and I switch it out. So I get rid of the woolly socks, I get rid of the woolly, my fuzzy winter pajamas. I just like to have the extra space in my drawers. So I have it in the basement. If you have the room to switch out, I would definitely recommend that. And especially with the kids, as they're growing, you're going to be switching it out anyways. So yeah.
All right. Well, this is why you're the expert. I should try. I think I just do the layer approach when I dress as part of it. I'm like, I'll wear it eventually, and it is nice to like, I like the having it in sight, but all right, maybe I'll implement it. When people are at that stage of like being just so overwhelmed with life and need to implement do you have a theory in terms of like starting with room by room, or starting with like a deep clean of the whole house, or starting with like an organize of the whole house? How do you segment it?
When we start, we have a consultation to determine what their goals are. And usually, one of the first questions I'll ask is if they were to be able to wave a magic wand and have one room, the one that's just most overwhelming to them, the way that they would dream, which room would that be? And generally, that's where I would start. If they have no idea, I always like to start in the master bedroom because that's where you wake up, that's where you go to bed, that's the first thing you see. So if you're just faced, and so many busy families I find are faced with that. When they wake up, there's crap all over their dresser, they can't see the counter in the bathroom, it's just overwhelming. And when you start your day that way, you can't find clarity.
Mm-hmm. Well, waking up and going to sleep with it. Like for me, I know even if my closet doors are open and the closet's a mess, I truly believe I do not have as sound of a sleep, and I like struggle to go to sleep, and then, you go to bed in chaos, wake up in chaos. For me as a nutritionist, I really believe like when the fridge is organized and when the kitchen is clean, you want to cook. I hear that actually a lot from people. Like if their kitchen has gotten out of hand, they don't want to spend time in it. So you're more likely to grab things out and not make those healthy choices. As you said, your space reflects so much of your mental and physical health. So I think that probably would be very rewarding too, if you have one room that's really conquered, and you get that relief and want to keep going because you've seen the benefit and you've been able to embrace those
Mm-hmm.
results. Do you feel like the organizing like bins and baskets and like investing in the drawer organizers and all of that is worth the hype? Like, as I said, the decanters weren't needed for me. But I feel like it used to be such an expense to get the preparation items for some of this. Now I know like even at dollar store, there's so many affordable options. What do you feel like the need is for investing in items to help with organizing?
I think that's one of the biggest downfalls to anyone trying to get organized is that's the first thing they go and do. They go buy all the
Mhm.
stuff and then hope they can cram everything into it. And then they get frustrated and overwhelmed and then they quit.
Right.
So when I'm talking to my clients, I always say, don't go buy anything that's the very end. That's the icing on the cake. That's the last thing we'll do. Once you know what you are going to keep, once you know what you love and what's going to function for you, and then we'll figure out what's the best way to store it if you even need them, right? Because a
Smart.
bin's not gonna it's not going to keep you organized if you have 3 times the amount of stuff you're trying to cram into it.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't, do the like one thing in, one thing out approach, now you've just got more stuff. Like you're moving stuff around, but you're implementing new products into the house. I think that's a really great piece of advice, because I think, a lot of people start with the, okay, I'm going to go get the things, because it feels like an action item, like, okay,
Yeah.
I got the stuff.
Making some,
Yeah.
yeah.
The action item can be calling you instead.
Yeah.
That's the good starting point. What about
Yeah.
like seasonal decor? I feel like that's one too that comes up. Again, with my love for not having clutter, and I don't have kid, like, no one else is here to enjoy the decor. I don't care. I would love to decorate for someone else, but I don't really collect the seasonal decor to switch over. But especially with families and kids, like recently I got a Christmas tree, and that was a big commitment for me, because I'm like, now I've got to store a
Oh, that's
Christmas
funny.
tree. So
Yeah.
how do you recommend managing that seasonal swap out? Because do you know the amount of houses that I drive by that still have their Christmas decorations out in the middle of summer? They need you. I'm going to go put your business card on
There you
their
go.
doors, be like, hey, it's August.
Yeah, let's get at it. No, I am not a minimalist, and even if I didn't have kids, I am seasonal holiday crazy. I like the stuff.
Fun.
Um, I do even St. Patrick's Day, we'll do it up. So one thing I do find though is people leave that kind of thing out. And so there'll be tea towels. They've got, 25 different tea towels that they don't have room for in the drawer. So they're in three different places and they can't find them when they need them. But one thing that's a good idea is to take those seasonal tea towels and any other seasonal, whatever knickknack things, and just keep them all together. So keep your categories together, store it, put a label on it. If you are going to be like me and be a little bit seasonally crazy, at least know where it is and what you have so that you don't go buy more.
Yeah. Good advice. I think that hypothetically, I'd love to be seasonally crazy, but in action, I'm too lazy too. So it's not the type of
Well,
person that I am. What's something, do you notice a trend, like some things or categories that people keep like for years and years, and then often once you get into organizing, like that's the thing that goes, or the things that you can kind of walk in and just know, like, this doesn't need to be here. You're going to end up donating it, or, putting it away where it's out of sight, out of mind.
I find that everybody has their thing that they buy too much of for whatever reason it is, and all of us have our own issues or reasons for buying things. One lady, she was and I always tell them, you win the award for having the most, peanut butter hidden because you forgot you had it. So you went and bought two more jars of peanut butter. Or another had a whole full bin of napkins, like the paper napkins that are the seasonal ones. So everybody seems to have their thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So everyone listening, what just popped into your
Yeah.
head?
What is your thing?
Because I know what
Yeah.
mine was, clothes. Instantly, I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, it's clothes. And same thing, I think, like, if you're organized, you can see that you've got 5 black bodysuits that are almost identical. Like, you don't need to go get another one, What do you
Yeah.
how do you deal with collectors? I am like, I've never collected anything, but like my mom collects costume jewelry. My grandma collected bells, like everywhere she traveled, she collected bells. Again, in the sake of my like minimalism and non-attachment sentimentally to physical things, I refuse to start collecting something. But I feel like that must be a unique challenge in working with people, because there is usually a lot of attachment if it's a specific collection.
Hmm. I have found that by the time people contact me, they are over their collection or they've simplified it. So unless it's something like you were mentioning that they're inheriting and they're holding on to it for the wrong reasons, most of the time they're hiring me because I'm like a personal trainer for their home, so they're ready to get at it.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. They've accepted. Um, do you,
Or not, you know. Sometimes if they're not ready, we will say, you know what, I want to keep this collection. We're going to put it in a bin and we're going to label exactly what it is. and you can revisit it a year from now and see if you still have these same feelings, because sometimes they weren't ready to get rid of it then, but they might be a year later or
Do
6 months or whatever
yeah.
it is.
Do you work with people who they kind of work with you for, a brief amount of time, getting things organized and then follow up like 6 months or a year or 2 years down the road? Or do you find usually like once they've invested in you and had those few, 3 to 5 hour sessions that's enough? Or do you end up hearing from people again down the road?
It's exactly like people going to the gym. There's a percentage of people that go and learn how to exercise or find the thing that they love, and forevermore they're hooked. They can go do their own thing and they're going to work out as all the time, and they're good on their own. So there's those people that hire me that we go through and we make a system and they have a plan moving forward. And if I were to go into their home a year later, it's set and done, and they maintain it.
Yeah.
And on the opposite end of the scale, I have clients that ask me to come back sometimes every month, maybe a little bit sooner, and we just reset because their lives are so busy. They love the feel of having their home organized, but they literally do not have the time to maintain it. So they call us back in and we reset their closet, we reset their pantry every once in a while, just keep it up for them.
It's nice that you have that option. And I'm just even thinking, I think seasonally would be so beneficial for so many people for exactly these reasons. You could come in for, a few days in one week, do the wardrobe, do the decor, like do all the gardening stuff, goes back away and those types of things. I think a seasonal date with you would be a great.
Well, and it's so fun. I remember the first Christmas season that I worked. I took a picture and messaged my mom because I'm a Christmas. I love it, and I couldn't imagine that I was actually getting paid to decorate someone's Christmas tree. And then the flip side of that, I got to take it and put it all away, so it was all organized when they found it the next year. And it was just a dream. So that was my job that day. I couldn't.
So satisfying. Are you
Yeah.
like the organization, like lining things up, putting it away has always given you a lot of personal satisfaction? Or is that something that you just kind of have inherited now along the way?
Now along the way, I definitely was not an organized child, or I'm not, like I said, I'm not a minimalist, but I have found it to be in my own home, going through personal challenges, like I mentioned, and death. It was healing, and I feel that way when I help clients do that. It's healing for me to help them through some really difficult situations,
Yeah.
and then obviously for them too. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, like you're doing a lot of donating of items. Do you encourage like mostly donating? Where do you take things? Like I think sometimes people just don't know where to go with things, or selling things. I know that a lot of people have well intentions of, wardrobe. I'm going to sell this on Poshmark. I'm going to put it on eBay, but like then it just ends up sitting there. So that kind of, well, it's, maybe make a few bucks on it, but that takes a lot of time and effort versus just donating it and then it's gone. Like, what's your approach to that process and just getting rid of things in
Yeah.
general, where to go, like I think that the throwing away versus donating versus selling is a bit of a process for people.
For sure. And it's something that people get hooked on, right? If they are working on their home on their own and they decide they're going to donate things, sometimes it sits by their door or in their trunk for months on end. And that's why I decided that would be part of our process, was making sure once they've made that decision, it's gone that day and donated. One thing that we would discuss is their desire or their time to take the more valuable items to sell, right? So when we're going through things, that's something definitely to consider is are they going to take the time to sell it? And if not, making sure that we're intentional with where we're going to donate it. And most things can be donated. Um, yeah, there's a big
Yeah,
need.
I think it's a privilege, but well, I know it's a privilege. Let me rephrase that. It's definitely a privilege, but I've found for myself that my time is more valuable, I've decided, than the time it would take to make the effort to sell some of these things. Because I'm not a luxury shopper or anything either, so the return on that time is very minimal once I've gotten something. clothing wise. So I love the donating. It's like someone will appreciate it more, and there's no dollar amount that I can put on that. And another one that came to mind in terms of my things is books. So forever I used to just like hoard books, you keep getting ones and you're like, haven't read half of them. So now I kind of do the one in, one out. And when I read a book, I know I never, unless it's like something nutritional that I'm going to refer back to, or, something related to work or school, a novel or anything like that, I read it once, I'm never going to read it again. So I gift it. And I'm like, do you want my copy? It's obviously a used copy. I'm a very like highlight in the margins. I always say anyone who gets a book that I've read gets a deep look into my inner psyche about every thought that I was having. But it's also made it more fun because I'm like, I think it's a nice thing that I get to then pass on. So that's been my approach, but I definitely learned the hard way because I once did the Facebook marketplace thing thinking I was like going to sell a whole wardrobe. And then I think within a week, I ended up taking all of my stuff to the community donation bins and decided
Yeah.
that was better for everyone.
Well, one thing, if people are determined or have a desire to try to make some money back, which I mean, who wouldn't want to, we do put a timeline on that, right? So we're gonna make a to-do list. These are the items that you're gonna sell. You're gonna have them listed by whatever the date is, and if they're not sold within 2 weeks, then we're gonna donate them. So definitely check in to make back to the accountability, right? Like, have you got your items listed? It's Wednesday, 2 weeks from now. Okay, they're gone.
Yes. Okay. That's a really good accountability too. I feel like you must often feel like you're the mother of your clients in that way. Like, I need you to come and be like, today's the day. You get it on Facebook or it's gone. Um, and I feel like, yeah, there must be just so much joy in what you do. Like you said, the Christmas experience, obviously brings you joy. And I think the Marie Kondo trend was the, does it bring you joy? Um, did you read that book or watch the documentary? Do you implement any of those practices? I never read it or watched it because I knew that I wasn't going to implement it. So I just didn't.
Definitely. Did read the book for sure and did watch it. I love how she starts all of her projects with intention of essentially blessing the space and um, loving your home, like looking at it with an intention to love your home. I I like how she categorizes things. So when we were talking about just knowing where all the towels was the tea towel thing we were talking about, just having it all in one spot so that you're not searching and you know exactly what you have. I uh, as for her method of pulling your whole house apart, most people can't do that, right? It would get pretty overwhelming to do all that at once.
Yes, I didn't know about that part, but just thinking about
Yeah,
it overwhelms me. I'm like one cupboard at a time, like just the frit, like just one thing at a time.
yeah,
Yeah, amazing, because you leave feeling, I'm sure, so purposeful, and your clients just leave feeling amazing. Like it's just so therapeutic to have that reset of your space. Um, do you feel like a space is ever really done? Like in your home, do you feel like you're constantly kind of reevaluating those systems and approaches that you use, or do you find it's like, okay, we've got the methods and it works and you can kind of set it and forget it, or are you doing a regular inventory of those operations?
for my own things, I have my clothing set up in a way that I fold it and put it back in the same drawer in the same way. Habitually, don't even think about it. It's just like driving at this point, right? It just goes back in the same way. For when you have kids, things are always shifting and changing. But um, if you have a system for things, it's maintaining it, but you are always doing the same thing and it's working for you.
Yeah. And I'm sure like as kids age, that's maybe one of the times where like systems shift and reevaluate, or even think
Yeah,
nursery to toddlerhood, like that's a big
yeah.
transition where it's like not only the clothes, but the bed and the change table and all.
And the toys.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
hmm
yeah,
Yeah. Parents I've got it easy, like I don't have to worry about anyone else's stuff. But yeah, between clothes and toys and seasonal stuff, like there's just so much that ends up accumulating.
That's right.
What do you think one of the like easy actionable steps that people could take today, like listening to this podcast, like if there's a few things that you could leave with and say everyone could probably benefit from today that doesn't take a lot of time or extra money, what would your top 3 be?
Top three. One of my favorite things in a kitchen is the junk drawer to tackle because it's small and useful. So to pull all of those things out and just put them into categories and get rid of the extra little garbage and crap that gets put in there, just because it's used all the time. I would say that. Um, Underneath the kitchen sink is also a nice place to tackle so that you put all the items that are I don't know how many homes end up having their garbage bags in a different spot than close to your garbage can, right? So just think logically of putting things together that you're going to use. And your front entryway. Um, that's the first thing that people see when they come into your space, and the first thing that you see when you come home. So to think about that with intention. Are you somebody that loses your keys all the time? If so, does that look like a little bowl or a keychain so that as soon as you come home, you know where your phone goes, you know where your keys go, you know where your purse goes. um, More often than not, my clients, when they contact me, they can't find any of those things. So the entryway is a good point to start at as well. And none of those are really big projects, right? So
Yeah, that's like do it in a few hours on a day. I think sometimes we get so overwhelmed thinking we need to do it all that we put these things off that once we get going, it really only takes a minute, right? Like it's
yeah,
not a big undertaking. The front entrance is such a great point because it's also the last place you see as you leave your house. So, if you're leaving the house to go for work on a rush morning and you're like leaving with, oh my God, like look at the trail of disaster behind me, like you're stressed before you even come back to the house, I feel like, and then just have that overwhelm of like, oh yeah, I have to do that, on the weekend or, when we finally have time. So I feel like that's a really good one. I think,
it welcomes you home. I keep
yeah,
thinking, and I wanted to go back to when we were talking about husbands or spouses that are on a different wavelength of organizing. And one thing that we do is make sure that they communicate and talk how important it is, just to be on the same page. But one of my favorite projects was we were working with a mom, and she was in and out of the hospital as she was pregnant. So really struggling physically during her pregnancy. And she had primarily done all of the cooking. And so she asked that we start in her kitchen and in her pantry. And so we pulled everything out of her whole kitchen and just made things function a little bit easier. And her pantry had been so overwhelming. They live on a farm. And so we took out all of the duplicates, as when you live out of the city or when you go to Costco, there's even, a 2-pack of ketchup or a multiple packs. And when your pantry usually just gets so full, you can't even see. So we made backstock in her basement of all the extra food items. And when her husband came home, he actually started to cook for her because he could see what was in the pantry. And so when she called me crying, she was just so excited because she was going through all of these physical issues and pregnant, and he'd never cooked for her before. So it was just very one of the best days.
yeah. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
sweet. Well, and I do think, like when we talk about compatibility with partners, like those are the things that we don't necessarily think about until all of a sudden it's a problem, right? When you're like,
Right.
oh my God. But I mean, I know myself well enough to know, like, if I walk into someone's house and it's overwhelming with stuff, like I would definitely have a conversation, but just recognizing what you do need to compromise, because it's different people's mental health and physical health really are affected by that space. I was actually thinking about the pantry thing. What is your preferred spice method? Because
Mm,
there's, again, in Instagram and TikTok, like these beautiful spice drawers, and like the time it takes to decant them and put them, because you have like 20 spices at least,
yeah.
oils. The bane of my existence is the spices in bags, because they're the cheapest ones versus the glass bottles are so expensive. They are so inconvenient to store. And then I'm like rummaging through trying to find like whatever spice I need, and they're all everywhere. What's your preferred spice storage approach?
In my house, I buy the cheap bag spices and I do put them in the pretty jars with the nice little labels and the wooden lids. But it is extra time and I'm okay with that because
Yeah,
it just makes me happy.
I think it's worth it.
Most clients, yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, it just makes me happy to look at and to use. But most clients, I will encourage them to just buy the smaller, not the bag, not the Costco, the smaller, and pick a spice and stick to it. And even just the unified size and color and shape and everything of your spices, you don't have to decant, you don't have to do anything, but they're all the same in your pull-out drawer or wherever you store your spices. It's just a little nicer because a lot of people will buy the massive Costco spice. It's going to go, it doesn't go bad and hurt you, but it doesn't have the great taste after a short period of time, right? So smaller amount is always better.
Yeah, restaurant size. I mean, your family might go through one of the Costco size fast enough, but yeah, one person, I've had the same Costco size seasoning salt for, that's a great point. I
Yeah.
want to know how long it's been there. Long enough, let's say.
Yeah.
Um, and do you find that more people are leaning into minimalism? I appreciate maximalism. I think it's just that because I don't want to take the time or feel like I have the extra time to give to, the swapping in and out and organizing. And I also have a fairly small space. I kind of just lean into it out of necessity. Do you feel like with the trend of like the minimalist documentary and podcast, everything, that people are leaning that way generally, or are you not noticing a trend?
The trend for people actually living a minimalist lifestyle, those are not the people that would contact me.
Great point.
They're the people that are doing it on their own or living that way.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I have had clients that are fairly minimal that are just looking to downsize their home, whether they're retiring and or looking, yeah. So those would be about the only minimalist clients I have are the ones that are just really looking to downsize or selling. Sometimes people will contact me when they're looking to sell. So we'll go through and decide what they're going to pack to keep to prepare for the real estate photos and such.
Oh, yeah, that's a really great point. I think I also have been scared into minimalism, seeing, like as you have grandparents that move out of homes and, you see how much stuff gets accumulated over like decades of living in a space. I think that's given me the like, okay, let's keep it as minimal as possible because you're still going to collect things if you're holding on to everything. I do think too, there's like people who it's really like a psychological disorder. If you're hoarding, like it's not just as easy as just let go, like some people really are holding on
For
because
sure.
so much security is tied up in those things. I feel like, do you feel like your schooling with RCMP and some of the interpersonal skills that you would have developed there help you in navigating certain personalities and clients, because it's so individual? I can't imagine the spectrum that you work with, on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, and that's what I love about it is just how different it is. Um, I grew up in a family who were collectors. My dad loved to collect antiques, and so we had this barn, and the whole attic was just crammed full of antiques. And they decided one day that they were going to sell our ranch and everything they owned and buy an RV and start to travel. And it took months to go through all of this stuff. And we had this massive sale, and it was just so overwhelming. It was great stuff, but just so overwhelming, their lifetime of things. And I know that that had a big impact on me of just seeing how long and how much work and
Mm.
emotions and everything tied up into these things, right?
Wow, what a unique experience. Well, yeah, and I think too, sometimes then when it is so much, if you get so much stuff, you do get to that point where you're like, fine, just give it all away versus, being able to just slowly sell it off and actually get your, get some investment back on it. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
Mhm.
whenever I see those shows on like HGTV, like the picker shows and the collector shows,
Mhm.
I feel like that's so
Yeah.
much. You walk into these barns or storage units and there's just so much stuff. Wow, that's a very unique experience. It's led you here. But I also think it's amazing because all of these facets of your life from RCMP to, motherhood and being oh, I just saw someone's Instagram handle today. They're they didn't have stay at home mom, they had domestic engineer. And I love
Perfect.
that. Love it. I'm like,
Yeah.
that it deserves more credit. I'm like, I think that's the perfect term for it. Like, you have so much mental labor, so many moving parts there. But to this, those skills all intertwine and cross over. And how do you set clear boundaries with work? Because although you have the kind of 3 to 5 hour period with clients to work around the schedule at home, I'm sure with social media and the ease of availability, virtually, people are constantly asking you for help or advice. Is that a challenge for you, or do you just, direct them to your website, or how do you navigate that? I know, like, I struggle navigating that personally as well.
Yeah, the struggle is real right now. Just moved to a new city the end of June, and the kids are home from school right now. So just the nooks and crannies of getting up before everyone else, and yeah, working when they go to bed, and all of those things. So no, I don't have great boundaries right now because we're starting over in a new city. So
Yeah.
before I moved, though, I did have a little bit better. So we'll find that balance. I'm still finding my feet where I am, but
Yeah. But I think to come back to your very first, point in the podcast about how you keep yourself well, maybe the boundary shifted a little bit with work, but you've still got those anchor habits of your morning routine. And so I think, just like you're saying, pick the areas that you need to focus on in terms of people's homes. I say that with clients, what are the few habits that you need in the day to keep yourself well, and the rest, if it needs to be flexible based on the season, the kids are home, those transitions with moving, you can figure that out later and come back to them.
yeah,
So
exactly.
with that said, speaking of boundaries, I want to get you out of here on time, so I just want to wrap up with a few rapid fire questions for you.
Uh-oh.
And the first is, who is your biggest role model? Do you have anyone that you consider a role model?
Hmm, biggest role model. I have had the same role model my whole life, and it's my big brother.
Oh,
Um, yeah, always looked up to him.
amazing. This is good because I asked that question, and I always say that I actually don't know who I would put as my role model, but I have got two big brothers, so they'll feel obligated for me to
Yeah,
say that it's them.
there you go.
Um, what's the best advice that you've ever received?
Hmm. Keep things simple. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, because yeah, I don't know if I'm in my head too much, so that always makes you bring it back to exactly what we were talking about, right? Like what do you need to try to find your balance in midst of chaos? So it's always go back to that, keep it simple.
Love it. One thing at a time. Best book or resource you'd recommend to people?
Mm,
Got it. The Slight Edge. I was going to say, you had mentioned that before. Okay, I've
yeah,
never heard. This
I
is a
love
brand
it.
new one for me. I'm adding it to the list. Um, and personal mantra or words you live by.
Um, Probably silly, but I can.
No, I love that. I think that's the beauty of mantras. They're short and sweet and actionable. And last but certainly not least, for anyone who wants to find you, follow along, utilize your services, where can they do that?
Uh, 74 doors on, yeah, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, or just can look to my website and there's contact on there.
Perfect. And I'll link everything on my website. And I highly recommend the inspiration just of following your Instagram is a very good reminder day to day. And I just want to thank you so much for being here. This is one of those episodes where I selfishly feel like I probably get just as much, if not more, than the listeners. So thank you personally and behalf on everyone else. And good luck in the new city and with your continued business.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, anytime.